All right. I will say hello and welcome back to another episode of All Out Balance. And today I'm joined by a good friend, and I guess I can call you a business partner, right?
You can, yeah.
Mr. Sam Townend. Sam, how's it going?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. How are you, man?
Yes. All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much for doing this. I've wanted to ask for a little while, but just you're just busy all the time, right? And yeah, I don't want to encroach on your time, but
Oh, mate, don't be daft, man. I've always got time to speak to a friend, and a lot of the time it's weird because in today's world, you don't often just get a chance to sit down and chew the fat with people a lot.
yeah.
It's always interrupted by something, and I'm a fucker for this. I'm always getting distracted by something and drives our ass up the wall if I'm. I'll literally just switch off mid-conversation and there'll be a Skype come through or a text message or someone will trying to get hold of me. And there's too many ways of communicating these days, I find. There's WhatsApp, there's Skype, there's Zoom, there's email, there's Messenger, there's text message, there's all these different kind of things. And it's just so distracting. So to just sit here in a quiet room, I'm in the studio at work, I've closed all the doors, the phone's off. It's quite it's almost meditative in a weird kind of way.
So I guess I mean I get you kind of alluded to it, but do you feel like humans are built for this kind of connectivity with each other?
No, I think
I agree.
it honestly, mate. I think it's a sensory overload, and I think it can cause. I haven't been diagnosed with it, or anything like that, but I do tend to be a little bit ADHD sometimes in my traits, and I think that anybody with that kind of tendency, it can just kind of amplify that. And there's just so much to get distracted by and so many different ways of communicating now. It really is overload. And especially during lockdown, I mean, obviously everybody's ways of communicating have been purely digital to a certain point. And I probably share this sentiment with a lot of people, but I'm just feeling a bit zoomed out. I know we're communicating right now over Zoom, but digital fatigue, I think, is almost a way to describe it. It just feels too much sometimes. It gets to the end of the working week, and as I'm sure everybody is, you've got meetings, you've got calls, you've got whatever else, and you just want to see someone in person at the end of the day and chat to them. It's or certainly just sit here and chat with no kind of agenda or time frame to it. I think that's a big one as well. Obviously everything's so scheduled up these days in the world of Zoom meetings and Skypes and whatnot. So yeah, weird one, mate.
I think that there's a couple of things that sort of stuck out to me there. The first one is digital fatigue. That's a phenomenal way of branding it, right? But the second is person to person, agendaless conversation has now become leisure time, and that's scary to me.
Yeah, totally, mate. It's weird. It's almost like it's a novelty now, really, to be able to do that. It's almost that when you call someone up over Zoom or whatever, there's got to be an agenda. And because obviously our main form of communication has been Zoom, everything. Yeah, that's a really good point. Everything's got to add an agenda recently. Apart from like you do a family Zoom with mum and dad and just a catch up,
but even then, a catch up, right? Well, that's an agenda of something,
some agenda,
right? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a scary thought, because before you could have, and I think there's something to do with people being at home, right? Like to me anyway, if somebody's at home, you feel I would second guess whether to just call them or just text them for whatever, because that's their leisure time with their family or their downtime or whatever. Whereas if you're at home 24 hours a day, as a lot of people have been, that where's the boundary, right? Well, the boundary's like, well, excuse me, I've got to have a good reason to have a conversation with this person, even though this person is just one of your friends. I wonder how things go back, if they ever go back, when everything is open or not open or whatever the future may hold. I feel like this may have altered the course of humanity for at least our generation.
Yeah, I think it has and it hasn't. I think that there's going to be two different type of people that react to this. There's going to be the people who this has affected seriously, and it alters their perception of how to interact with people. And I think that might be the case more so for the younger generations, because they're obviously coming into the world, and you're obviously quite susceptible to changes in your environment, and it alters your behaviour. But then there's also going to be the counter to that, and there's going to be a lot of people who just want to get back out there and really almost grab socializing and human interaction by the balls and make it more of a priority in life, because you don't realize how much you've missed it. And I fortunately fall into the former category where I just can't wait to be around people again, and I just want to be able to get back out there. And I'm certainly not going to take any of that for granted anymore. Any kind of social engagement or the chance to be in a room full of people, or anything like that. I'm gasping to get back out there and see people and do things. It's going to be weird. It's going to be a weird time to see how it all unfolds and to see how people react to it. But I'm a glass half full kind of guy, and I'm ever the optimist. And I do believe that we as humans are going to get through this, and there will be some changes for the positive. I refuse to believe that everything's going to be negative coming out of this. I think there'll be some positive changes. So, I hope that there are anyway. So, yeah.
I mean, I think one thing, and this probably doesn't necessarily pertain to you, but maybe you can speak on it anyway, is what I think lockdown has done for the positive is it's drilled in the idea of autonomous working. And what I mean by that is that you're not tied to a desk in an office in a fixed location. You can literally work for the majority of jobs from anywhere. We'll get into what you actually do, but for me personally, I've been able to carry on with my job just as effectively as when I was in the office, if not more effectively, because I found that I'm just working longer hours. But sat from the same desk that I sit at when I'm doing podcasts, for instance, or whatever else, right? When I'm playing games or whatever it is. And I think that is a vast positive for workers rather than businesses, because I think there's sort of a notion that businesses have more control over staff and output when you're in a fixed location, whereas if you can't be physically seen, then maybe there's less control. But do you think that people from now on will be able to be more autonomous in their work choices, especially where they're working from?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is one of the positive things that I think will come out of this lockdown, and it's I hate this mentality of 9 to 5 grind or set hours grind. It just doesn't work. And I think as long as the job gets done, or as long as you're doing what you're meant to be, whenever you do it is up to you. And
I agree.
We live in certainly my business and who I work with, we live in a culture that's just get the job done, and it doesn't really matter. We just graft all the time. There's never really a day off as such, but what comes with that is the luxury of being able to be flexible with your working hours. And I can waltz into the office early one day because I work late another night. It doesn't really matter as long as the work gets done. And I think as people, that 9 to 5 grind, man, it just gets you down and just wears you into the ground. It's I don't think it's healthy for anybody. It's certainly not been healthy for me in the past. Before I got into the jobs the work that I do now, when I used to work for big companies and corporations like British Gas, and it's just soulless, absolutely soulless. And I feel for anybody who's trapped in that rut. And hopefully this pandemic, one of the positives is, like you say, is to make people realize that they don't have to be tied to that desk day in, day out and just constantly grinding. And it gets to 5 o'clock and you feel free. I mean, I remember that one of the only benefits of having that kind of work or working in that kind of environment was getting to Friday, and that feeling of Friday at 5 o'clock when the buzzer went or whenever, and you'd just be, oh, it's the weekend, it's time to party. But when I look at that in retrospect, at the time I used to think it was the best thing ever, but when I think back now and I think, God, I should be feeling like that anyway. I should be feeling like that all the time. Why should it just be at Friday when I've got 2 days to myself? That's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. So yeah. I mean, have you been finding it all right to be able to work like that? Have you found your productivity increase, or have you found it that it's
so?
How have you adapted?
I think the thing that it's difficult. In my job, there's always something that's broken or that can be made better, right? There's always something. It's an endless myriad of things. Now, what I found in the initial 6 months was that I just worked a lot, because I got up at 8, whatever it was, and it takes me less than a minute to get to my desk. So I can be in my bed at 8, and at 8:01 I can be logged on and working, right? And then I just find that if Imogen wasn't like, it's 7 p.m., you've been working for 11 hours, I just would, because
mate, yeah.
there's just something to do always, right? And then, I sort of questioned, why am I even doing that? I'm not getting paid to do those sorts of hours. I'm not, what nobody else seems to be doing those hours. What's the point? And I think what I have now been able to do is, if I want to take a 2-hour lunch, or if I want to start at 9:30, as you've rightly said, that as long as the things in the day that need to get done, it really doesn't matter. Like, generally I'm quite a late riser, and I prefer to stay awake later than I do to get up at 6 a.m. and I'll be in bed by 10. That's not really my thing. So, I've been able to get up at 7:30, start work at 9:30, go and have a 2-hour lunch where I take the dog and, we go and do whatever. And then I can carry on working at 7, 8, 9, and I'll finish off the bits that weren't finished in the day. And I think that flexibility has allowed me, even if it's the illusion of freedom, at least I feel more free than I do when I would be at my desk and I'm like, right, I've got from 8:30 till 4 or 4:30, whatever, and I have to be constantly productive, because I don't even feel that that's necessarily possible. I don't know that you could literally be nose to the grindstone from 8, an hour lunch in between, and then that's it, right? I just don't think that. I don't think it works. I don't think people work like that, right? You mentioned earlier about the necessity for social interaction. I mean, my job is entirely virtual, right?
Yeah.
Everything is through the PC. But even I, like, I'm not necessarily the most social person. Like, I miss just being able to turn to my left and having a joke with one of my colleagues, or whatever it is, or going to lunch with somebody, or coming up to Leeds and seeing you guys more often than I've been able to, and all this stuff. It's how have I adapted was the original question, and the answer is fine, right? Like I'm still be able to do my job just as effectively, more effectively in the beginning, I guess, but now just as effective as before. And I have absolutely no wish to go back to the office. Not one.
No. I can imagine a lot of people feeling the same, mate. I mean, I'm actually looking forward to going back to the office, because I love my job, and it's what makes me. I'm very, very lucky to work in an industry that I enjoy, and do something that I'm very passionate about. And I am looking forward to being back in the office, because part of my job, I work in the music industry. For anybody,
I was about to say, tell people what you do.
Yeah, so I work in the music industry. I work for a brand called. I run a company called Glam Zoo Media, which is responsible for looking after a dance music brand called Tidy Tracks. Now, Tidy Tracks is a record label that's been around since 1995. It was formed by two guys called Amadeus Mozart and Andy Pickles, aka the Tidy Boys. I have worked with them since 2007. We kind of like put the brand into hiatus in 2015 after the 20th birthday celebrations. We've done a big tour. And we'd done a big sellout event in Birmingham, and we put the brand to bed for just a couple of years to have a break from it. And then 2017 started things back up, and we just hit the ground running, really. And we put on dance music events worldwide. We've got a record label, as I say. We've got merchandise store. The music style's hard house, which is quite a niche kind of genre nowadays, I suppose. It was huge back in the early 2000s when I first got into it. It really was. It was the music genre to be into. It was the on trend style of music, and it's kind of a little bit more niche now, a little bit more specialist. But there's still a very, very faithful hardcore fan base who absolutely love what we do, and yeah, I absolutely love it. It's who I am. It's what I live for. So I'm very, very lucky that I work in that. And we get involved in other bits as well through the Glam Zoo Media umbrella. We work quite closely with a company called Pure Energy, and we provide. This has actually come out of lockdown, so this is one of the benefits that started in lockdown. We provide music for the fitness industry, for fitness instructors to use. on their online and also live. Well, we will be live once the gyms open back up classes. There's a big demand for copyright-free music because the gyms have to pay quite a large license fee to be able to use music that's signed to a record label. And to get around paying that license fee, we provide them with music to a certain spec that they can use in their classes. Now, historically, that music that's been created for that purpose has been shit. It's been made by people who don't really understand dance music and not real producers. And obviously, with our background being in dance music and the connections we've got and the producers that we work with, we've just kind of taken what we do at Tidy and just moved it slightly to the left, and then provided the music for the fitness industry. And hard house by nature is between 130 to 150 BPM, so it's quite fast and energetic music, and it fits perfectly for aerobic activities. So it's kind of planets aligning, few people in the right place. We've been quite lucky in that, but yeah, it's been a very busy time for us over this pandemic, and in a lot of ways, the event side of the business was obviously totally kibosh, and we had to severely change around what we were doing. And we were meant to be celebrating the 25th anniversary of Tidy last year. We had a big event planned for the summer. One of our flagship events is called the Tidy Weekender, where we get like 3,500 people down to a Pontins holiday camp. And we do 72 hours partying, 3 days, 3 nights. DJs from around the world come and fly in. It's a very unique experience. I mean, I'm very lucky. I've been there as a clubber, a wide-eyed clubber, to DJing there, to actually running the events. So I've seen the whole spectrum, and it's a very, very special event. And we were meant to be holding that last summer, and obviously we had to move it because the pandemic hit. And we just rearranged it. We managed to secure the same dates for this year, which is July the 9th, 10th, and 11th. And then obviously we thought, the pandemic's going to be finished by then, no problem. Obviously, it was starting to get a bit dicey. An event's going to be coming back. Are they not? We were kind of 50-50 whether it was going to go ahead. And then Boris announced that the lockdown easing over in the UK, here in the UK, would be by June 21st was the date that they were looking for lockout. With our event falling 2 weeks later, tickets just went boom, like flew in. So we ended up selling out of accommodation. So yeah, it's a bit of a turnaround, really. We've got to hope that the roadmap sticks, but I do think that there's going to be a thirst for people wanting to go out now out the back of this lockdown. And we've got quite a lot of events stacking up in the diary. And again, it's that I've been an events promoter. I've been a dance music events promoter since 2007, and well, no, actually since before that, because I actually started off how I got to where it's been working with Tidy in 2007 was through DJing and promoting. So I've actually been a dance music promoter. Jesus Christ, I've been a dance music promoter since about 2003. So yeah, that's a funny. I never even thought of that. That's a long time. So yeah, and not having that in your life for a period of time, it's made me really miss it. It's made me really appreciate it. And not, I don't do it. I know this sounds cliche, but I really don't do it for the money. And one of the things that's really become clear to me during the pandemic is I do it because I enjoy putting parties on, and I enjoy bringing people together, and that's what I've really missed. Being able to do that. So I can't wait to start again, mate. It's gonna be so good. It really is.
I think those first few events that you are able to put on will be messy, right? Yeah. There'll be a massive social blowout, and my only fear, I guess, is we saw over the last couple of weekends when it's been sunny, Hyde Park in Leeds, Primrose Hill in London, some of the beaches, it's just rammed full of people. And my only fear is you're going to have these events, right? You're going to have clubs back open, you're going to have shopping centers properly back open and everything else, and everyone is going to be, it's almost like an elastic band, right? An elastic band that's been pulled back so tightly for the last year and a bit that when that's gone, the ricochet effect is going to be crazy. Now, that's amazing for you as a business. However, it's not amazing if you do a couple of events and then we're back in lockdown again because people have gone crazy. I just don't, I don't know. I don't know. But the first question I actually had, based on what you just said, is how did you fall in love with dance music?
I don't really know, to be honest with you. It wasn't really anything. I remember the records that I listened to, and I just remember being as a kid. And I remember getting a couple of albums for Christmas once from my mum and dad. And one was Ministry of Sound Annual 3, mixed by Pete Tong and Boy George. The other one was Cream Anthems. And there was another one called Platinum, mixed by John Kelly and Scott Bond. And I just remember listening to them. And I'd never really, I'd listened to some dance music before. I'd listened to like DJ Quicksilver, Bellissimo was a big tune back then, you know. And I'm talking like, I'm like 9 years old, and I'm just kind of becoming aware of music for the first time, really, you know, what it actually is. And I remember I had this little CD player in the front room, and it had a pitch control on it for some reason. God knows why you'd want a pitch control on the CD player. And I remember messing around with it and being able to speed up the tracks I was playing on the CDs, like slower and faster. And I think that, thinking back, that was probably my first introduction into the manipulation of sound, and, you know, actually being able to do something else with the records other than just listening to them. And then it was just almost like a subconscious love affair with music since then, really. I remember back when we were at school, all the careers teachers everybody's getting the careers advice, and the teachers are saying, "Oh, so what do you want to do?" And my mate's going to be, "I want to be a mechanic," and one of my other mates like, "I'm going to join the army," and blah 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 blah. And I had actually wanted to join the army. I asked my mum and dad. I was at literally army barmy up to a certain point. I was in the army cadets. I was totally engrossed, and I was really really up for doing it. But I joined the army cadets, and I think it got it out of my system, to be honest with you. And I kind of got a lot more into music around the same point, around the same time, probably about 14, 15 years old. And I think the passion for music just overtook everything else, really. And I remember the careers teachers saying, "What do you want to do?" And I for some reason, I hadn't even got a pair of decks at this point. And I said, I wanted to be a DJ. And I remember him telling me, "Well, do you not think you should pick something a little bit more sensible?" And I was like, "No, I just want to be a DJ." And because I couldn't think of anything else I wanted to do. There was literally nothing apart from joining the army. There was nothing else I didn't want to be a mechanic. I didn't want to be a carpenter. I didn't want to be an electrician. You know, not taking anything away from anybody who does those jobs.
Of
but
course.
it's just not for me. And plus, I'm crap at anything like that. So I was like, I need to get into something creative here, otherwise I'm done for. So I just kind of followed on with that. Right, I'm going to be a DJ, and I actually got the qualifications I needed to go to Leeds College of Music and actually start studying DJ technology. This was back in 1998 when I first left school. So it was just as dance music was really starting to boom, and, you know, the whole clubbing thing was taking hold. And I did this course. I did this DJ technology course, but I only lasted about 2 or 3 months because I just wasn't feeling it. And I'll be honest with you, I just wanted to be dossing around my mates getting stoned. I really did. I was just kind of, I just lost my way a little bit. But I kept my deck. I got a pair of decks by this point. I got a little pair of Gemini belt drives, and I was kind of teaching myself to mix, and I was still sticking on with it. So I dropped out of this DJ course. I wasn't really learning that much anyway. It was a bit by the numbers. And then, just kind of stuck on with it in the background, went through loads of shitty jobs, did, you know, working call centers, working in bloody polyfiller factories, doing all pot washing for a living, but did all sorts of crap stuff, but always had in the background the DJing. And kind of, I'd get home from these jobs and I'd just carry on doing that. I'd either be teaching myself how to mix, or, you know, when I got my first computer, I'd be online doing some networking, or you know, whatever else I had just to get involved with it. And just kept on going, really. Just literally just kept on going. And then my first big break, and I say my big break, at the time it wasn't a big break, but when I think back, it was when everything changed. I'd been down to a bar in Ossett, and Ossett's like this little mining town, or ex-mining town outside Wakefield, and it's really, really small. And there was a bar there called OTT, and I'd heard of these lads doing a night down there, and I thought, all right, this might be a chance for me to go get a set. And I went down there, and I ended up getting in with them, and the guys who were running it couldn't be bothered doing it anymore, and they asked me if I wanted to take it over. And we're talking like, this is tiny, you know, there's 15, 20 people turning up on a regular basis. But I saw it as an opportunity. I thought, right, I can use this, I can get this, and I can use it as a way for me to get in on the bigger clubbing scene by using it as a almost like a weapon to, right, I've got this, I'll get you on at my night if I can play at your night, and then started using it as a swap with other promoters, because every promoter in Leeds at the time was a DJ themselves, so everybody's trying to get somewhere and climb the ladder, and the only way that you do that is by getting your name on loads of flyers, so everybody wants to play at your night, and it's all about perception, man. And I was there with a nicely designed flyer saying, hey, you want to play at my night? They didn't know it was a shitty bar in Ossett, you know, it was just, to them it was another gig, it was something to shout about. So yeah, I just kind of used that as a little tool, and it all just kind of started building from there, really. I mean, it was a very slow process, it didn't happen overnight, and there were certainly some bumps and hurdles along the way, but just kind of never gave up, really, and got in with the right people and got to know the right faces. And the music industry is that a terrible cliche, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and you've got to know the right people to get given the chances, and that still stands today, and it'll stand forever. You know, it's not that you've got to be good at what you do. It does get to a point where you've got to be able to back it up, but at the same time you have got to know the people. And because I was literally out every weekend, I was in the clubs, I was back at the parties, I was talking to everybody, and your face just gets known, and you get introduced to people and blah blah blah. And as long as you're not a dickhead, and you know you're pretty sound, then you can get on with folk, and you end up getting somewhere. And as luck would have it, it just ended up that a job opportunity came up at Tidy, and for a couple of people probably putting in the right word for me, and you know, being in the right place at the right time, I got offered the job, and bang, here we are today. So yeah, it's quite a cool. When I think back, when I say it like that, I've never actually spoke about it like that before. When I say it like that, it's quite a cool little journey, just from, you know, being a little wide-eyed clubber, going to all the gigs and looking up at all the DJs and thinking, oh god, I want to do that someday, and then being able to actually do it. It's pretty cool, man. But I haven't stopped yet, and I've still got things I want to do, and I don't feel like I've accomplished everything I want yet. So I'm still forever grafting and trying to get even further than where I am. So I'm immensely proud, should I say, of what I've done. And if it all ended tomorrow, I could sit back and be proud of it, and I wouldn't have any itches that are left to scratch. But at the same time, I've still got things I want to do, and I'm still ambitious to where I want to go. So, you know, it's not ended just yet.
I mean, I've got a ton of questions. I mean, the first one, I think that just jumps out is, you were saying, oh, let me get into something creative, right? In your careers advice meetings.
Yeah.
What the fuck is creative about the army, Sam?
Well, you know what? There were two things that I was that I enjoy. One's being very, very active.
Yeah.
What, like, as in being very, very active. So I'm always out doing something. And back then I was in the scouts, I was in the cadets, I was in everything. I always like working part of a team, and I still like that now. I love working with other people, and I dare say that I'm at my strongest when I'm working with other people.
I can attest to that.
I do enjoy it, and I think there's something very, very sort of almost fulfilling about when you and a group of other people achieve something. I get more out of that than when I do something off my own back, or when I do something myself. I find it very, very gratifying. And I think with the army, it was just I think I just like the look of it. I didn't actually, when I actually think about what the army does, I don't like that bit, but I like the idea of running around a field with all your mates, getting up to mischief. And I know that's a terrible explanation, because that's not what the army does, but in my head, that's kind of what was going on.
Sure.
And then with the music thing, I think music just subconsciously came in and took me over. Now, my dad's an artist, a very good one as well.
I was going to say, if anyone hasn't yet seen, you often post about his work on your Instagram, and they should go and find his work, because it's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, if you search Greg Townend on Instagram,
I'll put the links in the in the show notes. Yeah,
that'd be brilliant. So I've obviously got some creativity from my dad, and it just kind of I've always been into kind of like the arts and stuff, and I've always been like I was big into drawing when I was growing up, and I've been a crap at it now. I haven't picked up a pencil for years, but I was certainly always that way inclined. And I think when that side of me overtook everything else, I think my mum and dad were more than pleased, rather than me running off and joining the military. So yeah, it was. I'm pleased how things turned out. I'm glad. I still like to do the, go out on the. I'd still like the adventure side of stuff.
Mm.
You know, I'd like to do more of it. I'd like to be able to, you know, go and do the challenges and the activity side. You know, the active side of what the military might do, like, you know, trekking up Snowdon and you know, buggering off to some far-flung destination, doing something mad. That bit still excites me, and I'd like to do that more. But at the same time, it's just having the time these days. You know, it's
I think
life's quite hectic.
I think that the army is a really, really good propaganda machine for lads that, because I'd say that a good percentage of young lads have exactly that same mentality when they're sold the army. Is you're going to get in a field with your mates and run around and shoot shit and blow shit up and have a great time. And if that doesn't sound enticing, I don't know what does, right? Because that sounds
exactly.
amazing. But as you rightfully found out from the cadets, and also when the sobering realization of what the army actually does hits you, it feels like it's a very different proposition, right? Now, you know, I know somebody that tried out for the Marines, right, and got pretty close to the final selection and whatever, and for whatever reason didn't go through with it. And you know, the training is what you've just said, right? You jump out of the helicopter crashes, and you've got to bail out, and you're riding this car and that car, and there's tank training and all this, you know, fun shit, right? But when you speak to actual Marines, which you can do as part of that training, you're like, so what do you do? And they're like, we just fucking sit around for hours and hours and hours, and then we do some drills in the morning and some training in the afternoon, and then we sit around and sit around and sit around until a deployment happens, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's not the adventure part, really. You know what I mean? But on the flip side of that, have you read War by Sebastian Junger?
I haven't, no.
Okay, so for anyone that fancies an insight on what war is like, you should go and read that. So he's a journalist, right? Just a journalist. And he goes along and he was documenting a Marine Corps troop on deployment. And the way that he describes it and the way that he's able to depict what happens out there is brilliant. And obviously there's all the heartache when you lose friends and, you know, people die. And, you know, he goes into depths about how certain operations are taken out because he goes out with them and whatever. But the overarching theme of the book is that sort of the sobering quote is he meets one guy back in New York after, you know, 3 months home or whatever it is. And the guy's a bit of a wreck, and Sebastian says to him, like, civilian life isn't treating you well, right? And he said, I'd give anything to be back out in Iraq or in Afghanistan, I can't remember exactly where it was, with the same group of people with mortar shells on my head than sitting at a table waiting to be served dinner. He's like, I'd give anything to be back there. And I think that is an elixir that's really hard to get out of, right? And that's another propaganda machine that's sold to you, is that brotherhood, that camaraderie, that almost drug, if you will, of adrenaline, of purpose, of being so close to death at all times, that's so enticing and so exciting, if you survive, obviously, that is really hard to put down and say no to, you know?
Oh, mate, I completely get it. And, you know, that, like you said, that sense of brotherhood and camaraderie that you must get after going through an experience like that must be like, it must be addictive. You know, like you say, it must be hard to get your head around when that isn't in your life. And I mean, I've read a lot of books from ex-soldiers and
of course,
about their experiences and whatnot, and they all mention that one thing. And, you know, I've not experienced anything like war, but I've certainly been, you know, when we've been doing on a very, this is going to sound really bad comparing the two, but, you know, when I've done like a big event, and, you know, it's stressful and you're running around everywhere, and just even the sense of camaraderie that you get from that is intoxifying. It makes you feel amazing. And so got to amplify that by a million to what those gods and lasses have been through, then I can totally understand that, completely understand it. It's you know, and I'm for anybody who's listening who's actually in the military, I'm by no way comparing running an event to being in a war zone. But that's from my limited experience of doing anything like that.
The other thing I want to just pick apart slightly is you mentioned the word luck a few times, and finally you're saying how lucky you were to end up at Tidy. If you just emotionlessly go and look at your own journey, it's not really all that lucky, is it? Because every day you would return home and you'd end up on those decks, or you'd end up on your PC talking about music, talking about dance music, talking about events, talking about this, that, and the next thing. It doesn't seem all that lucky, one, because I don't believe that luck exists, but it doesn't seem all that lucky that actually every day for 10 plus years, you were grafting and thinking about this thing, and this thing encapsulated your thoughts for so long that eventually, by knowing everyone in the scene at that point, because as you rightly said, it was promoter to promoter relationships, DJ to DJ relationships, fan to DJ, fan to promoter, promoter to fan, all of this stuff, you were both the customer and the provider, right? At various events, various different channels, various different places. And as you've said, you're not a dickhead, right? So people will gravitate towards you. You're always willing to help people. You're vastly passionate about the space. You're vastly passionate about the progression of the music. Where else were you going to end up? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, when you put it like that, mate, I mean, it's funny you should say that. And I'm a believer in luck, but I'm also a believer that you make your own luck. And I've actually got that tattooed underneath my arm there, make your own luck. And I think you can position yourself to receive luck. And I think that when I say luck, I don't mean like I'm walking down the street and someone runs out of a shop and goes, "You'll never guess what, I'm going to give you this." That shit don't happen. But you can certainly, if you believe, oh man, this is going to sound so fucking cliche. If you believe in yourself and every day you work hard, but if you, like you said, mate, I am consumed by what I do. I think about it from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. It's who I am. It's what I do. It's all I've got, and it's all but it is me basically. It's all I've kind of known. So when you consume yourself that much, and you really do, nothing stands in your way, and you just, right, this is what I'm going to do. And it's not even doing it consciously. It's just your being. You're just constantly doing bits to progress further or to be involved in it. Then you will ultimately get somewhere. I'm not waking up every morning. Well, I do wake up every morning and make a to-do list because I've got a job and I've got to do things to do. But in terms of career progression or getting somewhere, I'm not waking up and writing things down that I must achieve this and these are my goals and whatever else. It's just constantly in my mind, and I'm like, oh, I should be doing that, and right, I wouldn't mind doing that, and I want to have a go at doing that, and oh, that'd sound good if I did it like that. And so you kind of almost constantly, bit by bit, just moving forwards, but that's just by being who you are and having a love for something, basically. Passion, that's what that is. It's pure passion. I absolutely love what I do, and I love the music, and I love the I can't even put my finger on it. If someone was to say, what is it that you love about it, I don't even know. I've often asked myself that question, and again, I get it from my dad. My dad's kind of consumed with his art, and he can get very, very tunnel vision with it, and it drives my mum up the wall sometimes. But he can. Well, it doesn't drive my mum up the wall. That's a complete lie. It's just who he is, and he just kind of, he's always been like that. He's always been very, very focused and passionate, and I've just got it from him, basically. And it's just something that's inside you, and you just have that thing that drives you. And I'm very, very lucky because it gives me a purpose in life, and it gives me a reason to go forward with stuff. But at the same time, it can be a curse because I can eat myself up about it, and if things don't go the way that I want them to, or I can't get what I want out of it, it will consume you a little bit. And I'm very lucky that I don't suffer from depression or anything like that, but I can certainly see how people who might be that way inclined, having that within them could turn them that way, if that makes sense.
So I'm going to argue your 2 points on luck there again.
Yeah.
So the first one you just said is you don't suffer from depression. I mean, I still, we've no idea really. I should say, I've no idea really what depression is or what the complete causes are or whatever. However, if we just draw some things from your life, right? Well, the job that you're in puts you in I don't mean this to sound like arrogant or whatever, but in some form of an authority, right? You've been around the scene a long time. You know a lot about the scene. You know a lot about the people. You know a lot about how production works, how composing works, you know how an event works, you know what the customers are like because you are one, right?
Yeah.
The understanding of the scene puts you in a position where you're authoritative, right? So people look up to you for answers for questions. People want to be involved with you. You've got a core set of friends inside and outside of music that are there to support you. You're in a good relationship. You've got supportive parents. You look after yourself. You're fucking beautiful. And, you do all of the things, again, either consciously or subconsciously, that stand you in good stead to not fall so low that the word depression could be attributed to any failures of either your cerebral or environmental variables in your life, right? So I don't think it's luck at all. I think it's been architected that way, again, either consciously or subconsciously through teachings of either the scene, your parents, yourself, your friends, whatever. And to sort of mirror that slightly with your point about you can put yourself in a position of luck to occur. Again, I mean, it doesn't feel like, other than you being in a club and looking up at the DJ and be like, I want to do that one day, it doesn't feel like you've consciously gone out looking for progression. Instead, you've gone out trying to enjoy the music, right? And be passionate about the music. And I think that's a major key of all the conversations that I've had with people that are successful in something. They don't go out looking for progression. They go out looking to just have fun with whatever the thing is that they're doing. And some days it's fucking shite, right? Some days it's not fun at all. Some days it is a grind. But if 90% of the time that you're consuming something, engaging in something and participating in something is enjoyable to you, generally progression will just come.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very good point, mate. And I think that people who aren't passionate about it and are getting into something for the wrong reasons, the cracks begin to show quite quickly. And you tend to find that, there is the exception to that. I know people who just got somewhere because they've been in the right place at the right time, but more often than not, the people who are doing it for the wrong reasons do get found out. And I've never been driven by money or anything like that with it. It's just pure, for, like you say, it's for pure enjoyment and pure self-satisfaction. So in my head, I'm the wealthiest man alive because I enjoy my life and I enjoy what I do. And sure, it's nice to have money and I'd like to have more of it. And I've never really earned any decent money out of doing this. I sacrificed earning a good coin to be able to do a job that I love and do something I'm passionate about. And the way things are going at the moment, things are going good. There's the opportunities on the horizon. It's all good. There is the opportunity to earn money, but at the same time, I'd sacrifice any amount of cash just to be happy in life. I think that's really, really important. And I think that I almost feel sorry for people that are driven by the pound and just, literally hand over throat, grasping at every little pound they can get, or every bit of, if it makes money, let's do it. And I like that mentality because it shows ambition, but I don't like that mentality because I think you can sacrifice a lot of personal gain and wealth being personal wealth, meaning, for yourself and how you feel and how you approach life and your outlook on life, just to chase this fictitious fucking thing that's been dreamt up to constrain society. Basically, it's a weird one, man. I'm just very, very grateful that I'm not money driven. Basically,
I mean, I'm only in the field that I'm in because of money, and it kind of I was like, how I got into this doing IT was basically because my mum was like, you need to get a job that's going to pay the bills, or like help with the bills. And I was like, all right, sound, what should I do? And she was like, what do you want to do? And I wasn't able to do the thing that I actually wanted to do. So she was like, well, what are you good at? I'm like, well, I know how to use computers. And she was like, let's do that. And we're now 10 years deep, right?
Yeah, mate. I mean, it's solid advice, and you've got to earn money in this world. I'm not stupid enough to think that I can just sit there like I love throwing stones. I love throwing stones in a river. It makes me so happy, right? That's what I want to do for a job.
Sure.
You're not gonna be able to do anything that you want, and it's. I think it's solid advice. My mum and dad were always just very, very adamant that you make what you love into your job, and that's the path you need to follow. You need to do that. I'm forever thankful. I'm forever thankful of that advice. I mean, my mum and dad brought me up so well. You know, they were very, very kind and humble. They are very, very kind and humble people, and they, yeah, they've just brought me up with that mentality of just do what you enjoy, just do what you love. You know, and I think that's solid advice for anybody who's feeling a bit lost or looking for a way to go. Just think of what you love and go and do it.
I completely agree. And I think just to loop this all the way back, and this is a thought that I've been having for a little while about the generation that is coming into the world now, is if we think about sensory overload that we just spoke about, just in a communication perspective, there is a sensory overload for everything else as well, right? Like if you want to go and play a game, well, there's millions of games to play. If you want to go and eat at a restaurant, there's thousands of restaurants to go and eat at. If you want to go and watch a film, there's hundreds of films to go and watch. I wonder whether people will struggle more now to find the thing that they love because there's so much access to so many different things, you know?
Yeah, I can completely see that. And another thing, another little thought experiment that not a thought experiment, but another little chain of thought that I've had before is how many people must have not found the thing that they loved in life, but have been like world class if they'd have put effort into it. I mean, imagine how many people have gone undiscovered, or they've just like, you might be really, really good at, you know, horse riding. You might be really, really good at show jumping. You've just never tried it and you don't know. I mean, imagine how much natural skill and talent people just don't realize that they have, and they go all through their lives without discovering it. It's to actually fall into something that you're good at. It's like the lottery. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Like my missus basically has that same problem right now. Is she's like, I want to try everything, but I don't have the time and I don't have the resources, right? Because obviously there is not enough time just in your life to try everything. Because you will know, when it comes to music, the first sort of 6 months, 8 months, 2 years, if you look back at the technical ability that you had then to what you have now, it's laughable, right? Like it's just not the same thing. And for you to unlock, for me, my belief anyway, is for you to unlock enjoyment in something, you have to have a fundamental understanding of how the thing works, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not to say in my job I don't get any enjoyment. I enjoy coding things, I enjoy scripting things, writing things. I only enjoy it because I know how it works.
Yeah.
When I was learning how to, I fucking hated it because I had no idea what was going on. It was just letters and numbers on the screen and I didn't get it. But now it's like, it's more enjoyable, and I suspect the same for you. And it's a real problem, I think, because there's psychological studies done on this where there were two sets of people. One set of people went to a fake shop, and it was a ring shop, and there was 5 rings on offer, right? And they said, pick a ring, pay for it, take it home. Fine, they did that. The next shop, there was 50 rings, right? They went in, they were asked to pick a ring, take it home, done. And they did that. And then 2 weeks went by, and they went and interviewed the people that were running the study, went and interviewed the people that went to the first shop, and they said, how do you feel about your purchase? And nearly all of them said, really happy with it. It was definitely my favorite ring out of all of the 5 on offer. You know, really, really happy. They then went and interviewed the second set of people, and almost exclusively, all of them were like, oh, I wish I'd got the other one. You know, there was this one, and I really liked that one as well. And there was, and I just, the choice was so hard, right? It's like paralysis by choice. And I wonder whether that is going to be a thing in the future, that because you have access to so many things and so many mediums, and as you rightly say, you have to do something for money. You have to live somehow. I wonder whether that's going to be a serious problem. I don't know.
Well, it is, and obviously the one of the biggest problems that we face on that tip is the fact that everything's going to get automated soon. So a big section of jobs is going to get wiped out. So all those, all those jobs from well paid, that are currently well paid and respected jobs like lawyers and doctors, and and then all the factory workers and taxi drivers, it's going to be gone. So what you're going to do? What choices have you got? And people would then say, well, the creative industries, that's what's going to be flourish. But you can't force someone to be creative. You can't teach how to be creative. You can teach them a creative process, but you cannot teach creativity. It's bullshit. You either got it in you or you haven't. It's simple as I could not tell you I couldn't even begin to explain where I get my ideas from for tunes, or where I get an idea from for anything. It just comes to you, and it literally comes to you out of the blue. Where it comes from, I do not know. is one of the great mysteries of life, but you cannot teach creativity. And I think that it's wrong to sell that dream to people, and it's wrong to make people believe that they can do that. And I think that's one problem with society today, that you built up into, oh, you can do anything, just believe in yourself and blah, blah, blah. It's bullshit, man. You know, you've got to have a natural flair for that kind of thing. And it's going to be a weird old time in the next few years, or certainly the next couple of, you know, decades or whatever, when that switch over starts to happen, where that manual labor side of things and those the jobs that are very follow a process are taken out by the robots. Where, you know, we're left with, you know, what are people going to do? You know, what are they going to do? The choices then will become, you know, refined, but also probably open up, because you know what the university courses are like these days. I don't know if this was an old wives' tale or bullshit, but I heard you could get a, you know, a diploma in the study on David Beckham at one point, and you know, there was all this kind of shit that they just made up just to get people to university. But what in reality is that going to bring you in life? What is it going to do? You know, you might enjoy doing it, but I suppose if you love it, then just do it. It goes against my mantra for life a bit, doesn't it? But yeah,
I mean, I think there's something. What I wonder is whether the fundamental pillars of what Western society has been built on will just not break down, but have to alter, right? You know, the understanding that for you to get a well-paid job, you either have to build it yourself or go to uni, right? Those are the things I was told at school, right? Now, I did neither, right? As it stands, I did neither. But I think uni now, especially, is just, I think there's a very finite set of roles and fields that it's imperative that you go to uni in.
Yeah.
I feel like now knowledge is so open and free, as you've said. I mean, not necessarily free from a financial perspective, but free as in it's populated throughout the world, that you don't have to go to university in order to become supremely skilled at something, right? Like you started out a course doing, you know, essentially like a DJ apprenticeship, right, of some form from a layman perspective, and you were like, this is shit, and now you happen to be one of the most coveted DJs in the UK, right? And put on one of the biggest events in Europe. And you know, that's no uni teaches you that, I think, you know.
No, they don't, mate. And again, it falls back down. You can get taught the process of anything, but the reality is you've got to be on the ground doing it. And especially in the music industry, it just doesn't work like that, really. I mean, you can certainly learn from any situation, but for the music industry specifically, to go on a DJ technology course and to get taught that, you know, you will be able to DJ at the end of it. Yeah, you might, but you might not. You're not going to be able to get a gig. You know, you're not going to be able to go out there and do it. And you know, I'm guessing here, but I'm pretty certain that I'm probably the only person who attended that course who's actually ended up working in the industry or doing something with it. You know, and that was just off my own back. So nothing beats actually just getting your sleeves rolled up and getting stuck in and getting it done, man. You know, that's you just got to do that. And it's the same applies to anything. You know, you can fanny around doing all the, you know, diplomas and the qualifications in the world, but unless you're actually doing the job, then it just doesn't really count for much, does it? You know, obviously there are certain exceptions to that, like being a doctor or being a lawyer. You have to learn the framework.
Absolutely.
You know, for a lot of things, certainly, and then music industry especially, because that's what I can talk about confidently from, because that's what I do. You just can't do it. And sure, you know, an event management course, I've never done that. And I've done events right across the board now. I've done corporate events, I've done dance music events, large scale, small scale, you know, and that's how me and you know each other from the event space, for running Pantheon. And I've never been on an events management course. I've never done anything like that, but I've learned everything on the job, and I've been lucky enough to be able to be surrounded by a lot of people who know what they're on about and just absorbed it like a sponge. And again, just kind of being able to hit the ground running with it, really. So yeah.
And I think this is kind of maybe the antithesis of what we're saying. The antidote to what we were saying before is that essentially what's happened is a small subsect of society, aka a community, have banded together to teach you everything that you know, alongside yourself, right? But together, the sharing of information has allowed you to be in the position that you're in. the same when it comes to myself personally, right? If I didn't have somebody, and there's been a plethora of people throughout my career, if that's Jesus, that's, oh God, that's sad, isn't it? If there wasn't people for me to ask specific questions to, how do businesses work? How does this work? How do I relate to this? How do I do this? How do I do that? If people weren't willing to share that information, I mean, I wouldn't be the person that I am now. I wouldn't be in the position I'm in now. So I think maybe to our points earlier about the sort of the nature of things altering and changing, I wonder whether actually the route that will happen is a much tighter knit society or a much tighter knit community, because the information held there is just so valuable. I mean, that's your glass half full look, I guess.
Yeah. No, you've got to be glass half full. Otherwise, you would just fall into a pit of despair if you didn't think like that. And I think a point off the back of that is that I've been very, very fortunate that the group of people that I've fallen into business with, who are now my good friends, Andy and Amo, and the other people that we work with, like Lee and Ben and people like that, we're all very, very supportive of each other, and we share information with each other, and they've been great mentors to me as well. Taught me what's the right way to go about things, the right way to look at things, but then also encouraged doing stuff off my own back, and also accountability. So we'll give you this responsibility, but ultimately you are accountable for it. And if it fucks up, it's your fault. But if it succeeds, it's yours. You can take you could take the what's the word I'm looking for? You could take the credit for it. So yeah, you've got to surround yourself with the right people, and that's again going back to working with a good team. It's not just about you or me or anybody else. It's about the people that you work with and how you all achieve what you're setting out to together. And I think having the right people around you is really, really important in life, in all aspects, from the ground up. I'm very, 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 very lucky in life that I've got great network of friends, got great people who I work with. I've got a great family, so I'm very, very lucky in that respect. And not a day goes by when I don't count the blessings on that front.
Yeah, I want to pivot slightly to you as a musician. So rather than you as an events manager and whatever, you as a musician, who you recently released quite a bit of music, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the music you released? And
so I've always been involved in music production from about 2002. I've always been working in studios with people. I've released loads of records over the years. I recently released a USB that had a load of them on, and there was over like 120 tracks on there. You forget how many you've done. But the one thing I'd never actually done, I had a basic understanding of the equipment that was used to create electronic music. I mean, I'm sat here in a studio now, and I'd always worked in studios, but I'd always worked with people who knew how to work the equipment. So I'd always work with engineers, and I'd always work with producers. And I am a producer myself. I'd go in with ideas and bring in samples and no, change that. I don't like the way that sounds and I want that to be moved. And that's what a music producer does. An engineer fiddles with the knobs, but a producer just kind of orchestrates how they want things to sound. But I'd never actually got dirty with actually the manipulation of the sound myself. And it's always something that I wanted to do, but I was always too busy with the other bits of the music industry. So I was always too busy with the event promotion or the record label management or whatever else it was doing. And I never really found that I had the time. Obviously the pandemic hit and I suddenly found myself with a lot of time, and I thought, right, you know what, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to actually fucking get to grips with this and actually, do it myself for the first time. And I've worked on various projects over the years with various different producers. Probably the one we're best known for at the moment is a house act called Tough London that I work with my friend Ben. Ben, aka BK, is one of the most biggest selling dance music artists ever. Really, he's done loads. He's made some of the biggest anthems for the hard house scene. He's very, very well known producer. So I've been working with him for the last few years on Tough London, doing house and techno away from the hard house bits. And I kind of veered away from doing hard house. I'd just got a bit bored with it. The scene was a bit stale. It wasn't exciting me. There were no new ideas. Nobody was embracing anything new. And as a creative person, you always want to be looking for the next thing and trying to be, you know, a little bit inspired by what's going on around you, and just kind of move things forward. And I tried to move things forward with the hard house scene, but it just didn't really work out. So kind of took a step back from it, started making house and techno with Ben. And then when the pandemic hit, me and Ben couldn't work together really, because he was, you know, he lives in Oxford, I live in Leeds, so we obviously couldn't actually physically be in the studio together. Everybody's tired. Everything just went up in the air. The pandemic changed everything, didn't it? You know, everybody's, you know, your attitude changes, and you go into almost like a self-preservation mode where you look after those who are closest around you. And, you know, Ben had some personal stuff going on with his family, so he had to sort that out. So I was like, right, I'm going to start making music my own. I'm going to take this opportunity to get cracked on. And I just started writing. And because I'd had all these years of experience of how to make a track, it came very, very quickly to me. And before I knew it, I had an album's worth of material all written. And I just started writing. I didn't start writing with any kind of agenda. I just wanted to make music that just felt right, and I just went with the flow. And it turned out to be hard house, really, but a different kind of hard house. It was almost like an elaboration of what I've been doing with Tough London. So not house and techno, but not quite hard house, but this kind of middle ground. So it was still banging club music, but harder than what mainstream house was, but softer than what hard house had been. And it's something that I've been quite passionate about for a while, that style of music, and nobody else was really doing it. And the problem when you're working with record labels is that you tend to make music that fits their agenda and fits their label, rather than just being an artist and making what you really want. And I'd got a little frustrated with it, because I found that I wasn't really making the music that I really wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So this was almost like just a creative release. It just, like, the floodgates opened and just got me head into writing music myself. And yeah, we've ended up writing that album's worth of material that got released on New Year's Day, called Fractal was the album, inspired by my dad. He used my dad's artwork on the front cover for it. It was released on Untidy Tracks, which is one of the sub-labels of Tidy. And then off the back of that album, it kind of got a few heads turning by the looks of things, and there's quite a few people starting to make this style of harder house music. Untidy's now the label that we released Fractal on. We've now got a load of music scheduled right the way up through to August. We've got a lot of different artists coming on board. Lee Haslam, who I work with, it was funny, this one. Lee Haslam is the guy whose job I replaced at Tidy. He left and I took his job. Not in a sinister way. He literally left to do his own thing, and I ended up taking his job. Years later, he ended up becoming my manager for Tough London, and now I'm working with him again on Tidy, on the Untidy thing. So it's quite a nice little story with me and Lee. We get on like house on fire. He's a good mate, and we so he's bringing in he's got a wealth of experience in the house music industry, because he's a manager. He works for some of the biggest acts, Left Wing and Cody and Perupa and people like that. He's done brilliant things with his artist management company, and he's bringing all that wealth of experience back to Tidy. And we're just, there's a little bit of a thing bubbling now. You know, we're all kind of working towards getting the music back out there. There's a lot of people making music that's similar to this now. We've just mixed another album called Basics, which is spelled BASSIX, which has come out on Untidy, which is it's a compilation of all the music that we've been getting sent through. So Fractal was an artist album where it was just me writing the music, whereas this is me curating and mixing the album of other people's music. There's a few of my tracks on there, but it's always kind of like harder house style, so very energetic house music with a bit of a bang to it. And I'm just feeling very, very inspired about it all, to be honest with you. I've got the fire in my belly about it. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm buzzing off the fact that other people are sending music in this style, and it's nothing new. You know, it's harder house music. This is how hard house started off back in the late 90s. It was an elaboration of house music that was around at the time, just a bit harder, but then it ended up going off right to the extremities of it, and ended up being 150 BPM, real fucking like really either really cheesy or really, really banging, and it kind of turned into this specialist niche thing, and like didn't lose its way. It just evolved basically, but then it stopped evolving, and that's when it died. And then now with this new kind of influx of bit of a resurgence in not a bit of a resurgence in it in a term of people have started to be creative with it again. And also the pandemic hit and has allowed people to get back in the studio and actually start making it, you know, and they've allowed them the time to be able to start just think about it a little bit more. And it's really exciting, to be honest with you, mate. It really is. And for me, for someone who's so passionate about this music style and who's been involved in the scenes for so long, to see this starting to bubble again and, you know, things start to happen and doors starting to open, I'm very happy about it. So yeah, it's good, man. That was a really long answer to your question, I realise.
Not at all. Loved it, fucking loved it. I mean, you could really hear the fire, right? You talk about the fire being in your belly, you can really hear it. From a technical perspective, could you explain what the differences are in the genres that you just mentioned? So hard house, harder house, regular house. Like, what are the technical differences?
So house music, you would personify house music as between 120 to 128 or 130 BPMs. House music can be a broader range, an umbrella term for any kind of 4/4 beat. So that means there's 4 beats to over 4 bars, and it's just like your normal kind of soulful, groovy dance music, basically. For anybody that's listening, think of Todd Terry, think of Roger Sanchez, think of you know, I'm trying to think of some other big house names. More contemporary names would be, think of people like Gorgon City, think of not Calvin Harris, he's more EDM. But yeah, it's almost like it's like modern day disco almost. It's like the big brother of disco, where you've got a lot of vibe, a lot of soulfulness, and a lot of energy to it. Offshoots from house music come in the form of tech house, which is the genre of music which is popular at the moment, it's a similar BPM range to house music. However, it's got a more underground techie edge, hence the word tech house. Uses a lot of the same formulas, a lot of the same samples, but it's produced differently in a sense of it's a little bit more edgy. It's got a little bit more of a bang to it. Hard house music that we're into is a further elaboration of almost tech house and house music, where it ups the BPM range slightly between 130 and 135. But the kick drums become harder, the noises become a little bit more aggressive, maybe. Still got some soul to it, still got some groove to it, still got some nice feeling and some euphoric, but it's a lot more energetic. You know, some of the tech house stuff and house music, it's all got an energy to it, but at the same time, it can be a little bit. You could go to a club and you imagine it, you're in a club and it's just playing house music groovers and everyone's just kind of sat there with their heads nodding, and you know, you might get the occasional cheer where everybody puts their arm in the air. Hard house music is about energy and people really feeling it, and you can massively notice the difference in energy levels when you go from one to the other. Traditional hard house, or what hard house turned into when you're up to the like 140 range to 150 range, quite banging, obviously. It's quite pacey at that speed. There's a lot of big noises. It can get quite cheesy in places. And when I say cheesy, it's got kind of like your big, your big riffs and offbeat basses. A lot of people associate the donk with hard house. You know, the gonk gonk. It can go that way, and there's a time and a place for it. And I like some of it. I don't like other bits of it. And then off the elaboration of hard house, there's all these other subgenres, like you've got hard style, you've got hard trance, you've got NRG, which is a harder form of hard house. And then right up to if you go beyond hard house, you then get into hardcore, which is predominantly around 160 to 170 BPM, even up to 180 to 200 in some of them. And then you've got elaborations of hardcore. So whenever there's a music genre, someone always takes it and puts their own little spin on it. But that's what I like about dance music. You can be that creative with it, but it all boils back to house music, which originated from disco. So that's where it's all come from, basically. And then obviously there's all the techno stuff and whatever else. I could literally just go on for days talking about music genres, and probably people would get quite bored of it. So
see, I like this, right? Because I think that genres of music are like, that's what, at least when I was a kid, right, that's what you argued with your mates over, right? So let's say you've got one band and they're like, oh, they're this genre, and you're like, fuck off, no way, they're this genre, like we're not that, they're not this, and then it's new genres on genres on genres on genres on genres, and I think that in a way, I guess it's important to have a taxonomy of what that music is. But as long as, you know, it doesn't get too political, and that actually what's important is that it's all music, and if everyone can recognize that everything descends from one place, right? The lineage of music is all from one place, and as you rightly said, like, you know, it's from house or from disco, if you want to go even further back, right? I think that, but for me personally, I find that really important, right? It's like the understanding of the family tree of the music that you're listening to, and where it flows from, and how people, because I think that's where you find the real creative sort of, like the synapses almost in the family tree. Is somebody was like, oh, I really like this, but I also really like this. Let me jump and make them, like, I'll connect them in some musical fashion, and the technical differences are actually what make it, right? It's the essence of the thing is the technical differences, and that's why I really enjoy it. And I think that that's why I really enjoy understanding the sort of hierarchy of the genres, because that allows me to see sort of where things are and how things are made, right? Because when you're sat in a studio, you may not be thinking as the engineer, as the artist, and the producer all sort of rolled into one. You may not be instantly thinking, okay, I'm going to make a track that is in this genre, and then I'm going to make a track that's this genre. And actually, as you rightfully said earlier, all you're doing is just sitting down and letting, this is a beautiful way that you said it, you just let the music flow out of you, right? You're just writing what you want, what's in your soul, you're just writing.
That's completely it. And obviously, you know, there are times when you sit down, and I've done it myself, and you go, right, I've got to make a track that fits this, and it fits this box, and it fits that. Like for the Pure Energy project that I talked about earlier on, where we're making music specifically for fitness instructors, you have to make it to a certain specification. It has to be done like that, and your creativeness is still in there, but it's music for a purpose. Whereas the most enjoyment I get is when I'm sitting there and I'm just making music that I love, and that always turns out to be this. At the moment, anyway, it always turns out to this 130 to 135 BPM harder house music, and you know that's just where I'm at, I suppose. I'm no doubt that will change, and I'm no doubt that will evolve into something else. But certainly at the moment, that's where my head's at, and that's what I'm enjoying doing. So it's great, you know. I'm wishing that I'd started writing myself earlier, man, because the enjoyment that I get out of it, it's second to none, and it really has kind of engrossed me as the music production side of stuff. I'm not. Well, one thing that's put me off is I'm going to use the term the geeky side of it, where you know you're learning about the different frequencies that bass line should be, or a different how to EQ a kick drum so it sits flush, and there is that side to it. You do need to know that, but I just enjoy the writing and the creative process that you go through, and that's what I get my most kicks out of. You know, there are people who've spent years and years in a studio that you can take your project to, they will be able to make it sound sonically sound, but for me, it's just about that release of creativeness and that release of just getting lost in it. It's almost meditative, you know. You kind of get lost in it, and hours just fly by. And like, fucking hell, I've just been engrossed in this project, and it's a nice feeling. And I'll be honest with you, through the lockdown, through the pandemic, it's probably one of the main things that's kept me going. Really, just having something to focus on, and having something that kind of having a not even with an end goal in sight, but just having something that makes you get up in the morning and just kind of gives you that fire in your belly. I think I'm very lucky to have that, you know. And I know it doesn't come easy, and you can't force it. You can't say, right, I'm going to have fire in my belly about football and go out and that. I'm just going to practice football, because it doesn't work like that, man. It just does not work like that, does it?
No, not at all. And you know, it's something that I've certainly struggled with, and my missus has certainly struggled with. Like, I don't exactly enjoy my job, right? It definitely doesn't give me that fire.
Yeah.
So then it's like, well, what does, right? Now the podcast was birthed out of the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
The podcast started just after the pandemic did, and it was one of those things where I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do it, like, there's no fucking better time to do it. Literally, everyone's got time on their hands, and you know, whilst I didn't necessarily have as much time as others, I'm like, well, if I'm not going to do it now, then I'm just never going to do it, and you know, here it is. And I think to your point, like, there's just something really sort of, I don't know, it just kind of fills me with excitement and a bit of pride to see other people like yourself doing the things that you're doing, right? Like when somebody talks to me about something and they're excited by it, it makes me excited about it, right?
Yeah.
Like if you put me in a studio with you, I used to play drums as a kid, right? So I may be able to put together a a something, right? But I wouldn't know where to start with writing music. But you talking about it, I'm like, oh fuck, I'd love to write like a dance track. That'd be fucking awesome. And you know, that's what I think. That's what your role is now as one of the pillars of UK dance music. Like it's kind of your job to do this, right? It's your job to just live passionately through the music and inspire the next generation of kids that may hear this, may not hear this, but may just hear one of your tracks, either on a mix or on Fractal or whatever, and be like, fuck me, that's good, I want to do that.
No, mate, I mean, nothing will please me more. And one thing that's really inspiring me is seeing how many people are inspired off the back of what we're doing. And
yes,
you know, it's not just about me in terms of the music I'm writing, but it's about what we, as in me and the guys at Tidy, are joining together to push out there. And I think our passion like shines through in what we do. And we did like a little online seminar. We've got another thing that we launched during lockdown is a thing called Tidy Pro, which is basically, it's like an educational platform for people to learn skills of how to write dance music, DJ skills, industry knowledge. We've got people who are relevant in their field, and you know, artists, renowned artists from across the scenes, from trance and hard house, to do online webinars with people, and it's gone really, really well. It's really taken off. And we did a webinar on Untidy for people who are interested in making this sound, and it was one of the most well attended courses that we did on Tidy Pro, which shows how much interest there is in this kind of this almost like resurgence in the hard house scene. And me and Lee were giving the speech, and one of the lads on the course, he went, "Oh God, that's all right. I just want to go and make music now. It feels like I'm off to war." It's like the rally call has been shouted, right? Let's all go do it. So to be able to give people the fire in the belly like that and pass on some of my passion, it does make me feel really, really good about it, and it's a nice feeling. So hopefully it can inspire, and just for, you know what it is, as a creative person, when people just appreciate what you're doing, there's no better feeling. It's better than any kind of monetary reward. It's for someone just to go, I like that. I really enjoy what you've done there, and that's come from your head. That's the most rewarding thing in the world to me, rather than someone giving you, saying, right, there's a check for, you know, however much money there. I mean, don't get me wrong, the checks are nice, but at the same time, I think from a fulfillment point of view, it's better to have people to enjoy it rather than just getting the cash for it, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, and I know that you said previously that you don't know how your creative process works, but I'm going to ask you questions on it anyway because it's something that interests me. Like, when you sit down to write music, right, at the very start, when you were just starting Fractal, what did you do?
Well, the first thing I did, and this is a very, very important part of creating music, in my opinion, it's sampling and getting an idea. All creativity is spawned from other creativity.
Of course,
and you can, but it's very, very hard just to start something with a blank piece of paper. Unless you're a genius, you're probably not going to hit the back of the net.
Yeah.
And obviously, dance music is very, very built around samples and you know, borrowing stuff from other people and being inspired by other people. So the first thing I did was just get a load of samples together and spent a lot of time sampling records and sampling bits off YouTube and sampling other people's work and being inspired.
So for people that don't know what a sample is.
So a sample is basically, in essence, you've found another piece of audio from an old record or some form of recording that you then take part of that audio and manipulate it and turn it into something that fits with your track, basically. It's a creative process as old as there has been dance music. It's what dance music is formed around. There are obviously copyright issues, and you can't just go around borrowing everybody else's stuff without getting permission. But it's certainly where every track goes. Every good track starts. It's what the catalyst is, basically. And as soon as you hear a sample or something that you like, or a track, you think, oh, I could do something with that, and then it just starts to flow. And more often than not, it will turn into something that's different from what you started off with, you know, the vision that you had in your head, because again, that's the creative process. You start writing one thing and it just evolves and, you know, morphs into something else. But that's the beauty of it, really. So yeah, it all starts with inspiration, basically. That's the long way of saying that, mate.
So if you've got a foundation of samples,
yeah,
what happens next?
You then put those samples into the program that you're using to write music with. In my case, I use Ableton. There's various different ones. There's Logic.
Sure.
Logic is a popular one. And then yeah, you just start messing around with it, manipulating it. You know, you've got there are certain key elements of dance music that need to be in there. You need drums, so you need a kick drum, which is the thing that keeps the rhythm. You know, that loud doof doof doof. That's your kick drum. You need percussion, so you need your hi-hats, your claps, your snares, your shakers that gives it the groove. You need your bass line, which goes over the top of the drums, which gives it the bump and the pump. And, you know, everybody loves a good bass line. You've got your vocal element, if there is a vocal. It doesn't have to be a vocal, but you've certainly got a vocal element there if you need one. You've got your main lead sounds, so, you know, a riff or some sort of element of the track that gives it that hook. You know, the best tracks have got a hook. So when you hear that, you can sing it back. I used to work in a record shop, and the best tracks were always the ones where people would come in and go, I heard this track at the weekend, it went da 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 da. And you know it instantly. So you know that if you can hum back a track, or it's got that one thing that you can relay, that track that goes da da or whatever, that's when you know you've got a banger. Yeah. So you need some sort of a hook or a lead sound. And then there are obviously little sprinkles of stuff you can put on the top, like your effects, you know, stabs, stuff like that. But that's basically the core of what a track is made up of. And, you know, you end up working in a similar way on each track, where you get an idea down, and then you'll have the drums, and then you add your bass, and then you do the arrangement, and then you put the sprinkling over the top. But it can be anything, and that process can last any time from, I've done a track in 2 hours to 2 months. You know, it really does depend on how far you want to go down the rabbit hole and how quickly things come together. And, you know, sometimes the best tracks are made very, very quickly, and sometimes the best tracks are made over a long period of time. You know, the one thing that's been a little bit of a bastard over this pandemic is the fact that we aren't able to play out what we're making in the clubs, because the big test of what you're doing is when you're playing it on a big, you know, a big system in front of people. Does that sound right? Does that bit work? Does that go down well? So although we tested on different systems after I've made it, I still haven't heard any of the music I've been writing in a club. So it's a bit frustrating on that front, and I can't wait till I can.
Yeah, it's a really good point, actually. And I never really thought about that. Like, the thing that just popped into my head was like, you hear comedians, right? Before they go on a big tour, or they do a recorded hour, a special is what they call them. Yeah. They'll go to every small city that have got 30 people turning up, 50 people turning up, 200 people turning up, and they just work on their shit, right? And they give their best joke, and it doesn't work, and they're like, I need to change that. I need to go away and think about that. Or maybe a joke you didn't expect works really, really well, and you're like, there's something in that too. Let me go and work away on that, and we'll see where we go. And now you say it was stupid of me to not think that that's the same thing, right? You go to a club where there's a couple of hundred people in there, right? Just like a local nightclub or whatever, and you play your tunes, and maybe, as you say, it's this field test, right? Some things work, some things don't work, some things hit, some things don't hit.
Yeah, mate, it's exactly the same process, and it goes right from the production of the music to the actual DJing. The amount of times I've played at more empty clubs than I have done at busy clubs in my life. I've played more shit gigs. I've played to bar staff more times than I care to fucking think about. But it's all part of the process, and you learn what to do and how things sound, and you learn your craft. And, you know, there's no better experience of doing stuff than doing the shit first, or going through the shit. If you've just got it good all the time, you're not going to learn anything, really. It's a false sense of security. And with the music side of things, you'd be surprised. Well, might not be surprised, but there's more bad tracks get created than good tracks. And a producer will have a hard drive full of stuff that they've created. For every 10 tracks they make, 2 of them will probably be decent enough to release, and the other 8 just get forgotten about. So there's literally hard drives stacked full of music across the world from producers who have made stuff, and it's probably spent a long time doing it, but it's just not hit the back of the net. So they've just put it to one side and moved on, you know. And that's a big part of being a music producer. You've got to learn when to move on. You know, you've got to learn when to draw a line under it and just crack on with the next thing. Otherwise, you can just end up forever fiddling around with something and end up creating something worse, or just knowing when to stop, or knowing when, right, this isn't going anywhere. I've got to move on now. So that's a big part of it.
Absolutely, it makes sense. It makes absolute sense. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about when you go to a club, like what does playing a set entail for you? Because, you know, the people think that DJing is what Skrillex does, where he goes up with a Mac and presses play on iTunes and then just stands there dancing around a stage, right? Like what does playing a set actually entail for you?
So for me personally, dependent on the set, I will often know that my first 2 or 3 tracks rehearsed to a certain point. I know that they will go together and there will be an intro of some kind, and then I will know that those first few links are going to be good because that's your intro and that's what you're going to grab people's attention with. It doesn't always work like that, but more often than not, I'll know what my first couple of tracks are. But then after that, it's just the kind of knowing your music. You've got to know what your music is and how you're going to play it. But then it's just kind of seeing what the crowd's like and reacting to how they go. Yeah, and just knowing, again, coming from practice and coming from doing it that many times, you'll know that if a crowd's a bit low, then this track will bring them back up. They've been too high for a while, right? I need to drop them back down. So then when I do put another big track on, you get more of an impact. So if you just go bang, 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 banger after banger after banger after banger, it just gets a bit thin. You know, there's no movement there. There's no dynamic to the set. So the ability of being able to, again, another cliche DJ saying, take people on a journey, man. You know, the ability of being able to do that, and also kind of just understanding what you want to get across from a DJ point of view. You know, there's an old saying from a very famous DJ, and a DJ set should be 80% entertainment and 20% education, and that means that you are there to entertain. Do not forget that. Never get so far up your own arse that you think that people are just there to applaud what you're doing, in a sense of being fully on board, you know, you just going off on your own tangent. That's not the case. They're there to be entertained. However, there is a certain obligation for you as a DJ to introduce people to new music and introduce people to stuff that they might not know they like, but they haven't heard it yet, but introduce it in the right way and get that across. And, you know, a good DJ can make you fall in love. It can make you, again, I'm paraphrasing here off stuff that I've seen, you know, but it really does resonate with you that a good DJ can literally make you feel good, make you fall in love, make you feel fucking energetic, make you jump, make you stand, make you cry in some instances. You know, I have seen people cry when you've played tunes before, and it really is a weird thing. And a lot of people just see DJing. A bad DJ is literally just playing other people's music, but a good DJ is putting across your soundtrack to your night out and your soundtrack to, you know, some of the best moments of your life. You know, I've been a clubber, I've been stood there on the dance floor, and a DJ can literally just make you feel like the best person in the world ever, you know, if you play the right track at the right time. So I don't think it can be overlooked what the importance of DJing is. And I've played more bad sets than I have good ones. I really have. You know, I've made all the mistakes, played the wrong track at the wrong time, you know, put a shit set out, cleared dance floors. You know, I've literally been stood on the decks and seen a busy club, and literally one by one, everybody leave the dance floor and leave me to pretty much nobody. And there's no fucking worse feeling in the world.
Yeah.
And there's actually a reoccurring dream that you ask any DJ in the world and they will have had this dream, I guarantee you, where they have a dream where they turn up to a club and you can't find a record, you can't find the next record, and the other record's about to run out, or you play into an empty club and you've completely cleared it, or your mixing's atrocious. And every single DJ has this reoccurring dream. And I haven't had it for a while because I haven't been DJing that much for obvious reasons. But you've got to have gone through that pain barrier to appreciate when it really is good. And when it really is good, like when you absolutely rock it and you absolutely smash it, you've got the crowd eating out of the palm of your hand, and they're literally hanging off every single thing you do, and every track you put on is the right track. There's no better feeling, man. Literally the best feeling in the world. It's amazing. It really is.
That's the power of music, though, right? That is the real. That's the power of music. And I think there's two things. The first thing is the dynamism of a DJ set, right? Not often will you get a band a band generally has a set list, right? And you know a band's about to come on because it's dark on stage, but you see like 4 guys like scuttle on and they take the set list to the stage, right? So when the band comes on, they know what song's next. Very rarely, I suspect, and I don't know this, but I'm just saying, I suspect that you're going to get a lead singer turn to his band and be like, look, lads, this next song just isn't right. Let's change it and do something else. Let's do this one, 3 down.
Yeah.
I don't imagine that happens too often, probably because they've already tried to architect the night in their heads, right?
Yeah.
But when you've got a club, as you say, I guess the what's really difficult about a club is, okay, they all might be there because they expect a certain genre of music.
Yes.
But as you've said, that genre of music is very divisive because people have different takes on what that genre actually means to them and how that sounds to them. So they may turn up and be like, I expect hard house to sound like this tonight.
Exactly,
and you
mate,
come and you bring something completely different, and you then have to architect the set so that, as you've said, your education piece comes in at a time that is conducive to them experiencing it in a positive way. Whereas if you're a band, I don't know, let's just say Foo Fighters, right? One of the biggest bands ever. If you go to a Foo Fighters gig, you don't even care what they play. As long as it's a Foo Fighters track, it doesn't matter. Whereas a club setting is just so much more risky than that, unless they're there to see your set specifically. And again, they don't care what you play. It's just whatever, right?
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good point, mate. And I think it's harder for a DJ who's like mid-level, probably more so either bottom level to mid-level, like myself, who you've not really, people are aware of you, they've heard of you, they know who you are, but they're not there to see you, as a headliner. And I have, I've headlined loads of events, and you get a little bit more freedom to do what you want when that's the case, but then there is a certain expectation of you have to play a certain track, or you've got to play this, or you've got to play that. And I know some DJs have fallen into the trap of, then you get stuck in a rut of playing the same thing over and over and over again, and it'll haunt them, and they're just like, fucking hell, I'm sick of playing this record now. But then when you're on the bottom, that you're almost in the support area of the lineup. I've turned up to a club and I've completely changed. I've had it in my head. I'm driving down there, right? I know exactly what I'm playing, I know exactly what I'm doing. Turned up, nah, not the right fucking vibe here. No, I'm going to completely change it, and I've changed what I'm going to play. And I would never change it too drastically because, again, I've still got a style and a sound that I want to push across. But you might, in your head, you might think, right, I'm going to open up with an 130 BPM groover that's going to build into this and build into that. But then when you turn up, it's trance classics and everyone's going off to the euphoric stuff, right? You've got to change your game up and you've got to switch it around. And that's the art, that's the skill, of being able to read the crowd and delivering what they want to hear. And on the flip of that, I've gone to a gig where I've had all my set planned out, and I've thought it's the best, the most well put together thing in the world ever, and it's perfectly mixed. It's and I've really spent a lot of time planning it. Turned up, delivered that set, and it's gone down like a fucking sack of shit, and I've literally completely cleared the floor. So, and again, it's an horrible feeling. So I've, I just think that sometimes you've got to have it both ways, and I'm glad that I went through that. I'm going to say pain. It wasn't real pain, but I'm glad I went through that almost humiliation of clearing a dance floor, because it makes you into a better DJ almost. It builds you up, and you've got to experience things right from the biggest highs to the lowest lows to really get the best out of it. So yeah, it's a funny old thing as the DJ game. It really is. There's a lot of different there's one set way of doing it, but there's a lot of different ways of doing it, if that makes sense. So there's one way that you deliver a set. I stand there, I mix records together, and I play them. But then how you mix those records together and the style that you do it in, and some people completely prepare, some people just do it off the cuff, other people have a very, very dynamic with their mixing in terms of trickery, and they're constantly doing something. Other people just let records play, and their view is that they want people to appreciate the record for how it was made and how it was originally produced and how it was intended to be heard, rather than messing it up with loads of tricks. Some people like the quick fire trick stuff. So there's a few different ways of looking at it, and everybody's got a different opinion on it, of course. So yeah, it's very, again, it's a rabbit hole if you choose to go down that way. It's good though, man.
I love it. I love it. Like, I've never been a club guy. I think I've been to a club twice in my life.
Well, you'll have to come with me, mate. You'll have to come to a gig, man.
Oh my
Definitely.
God. I mean, I'd come and watch you play. Absolutely. That'd be
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, you should.
You know, and just, I think it's just the art form that interests me the most, you know, like I feel in some way, a lot of people view a night out, if they are not even necessarily going to see, like they may just go to a club because that's the club they go to, right? It's just their local and you happen to be playing there, or there is a set of DJs that are playing there that evening. And people will go and they just go there to get smashed and have a dance. And they don't care about who is playing or even what's playing, frankly, as long as you can move to it. But
Yeah.
I like the intricacies of the art form. I think that's so interesting to me. And I mean, for you as an artist, what is the, now this is maybe a difficult question, I don't know. What's the perfect audience member?
Perfect audience member is someone who's open-minded about music, so they don't just want to hear the biggest tracks that they know in an order that they don't, which is often the case. You know, your casual clubber wants to hear the big tunes, and everybody does. You know, if I'm out in a club, I want to hear a track that I know because it's like, oh, it's that anthem moment. It's the bit where you turn around to your mate, you give them that look, and everyone starts dancing around. It's brilliant. But then I also want to be educated to a certain point, and I want to hear new stuff. And certainly with the hard house scene, it got to the point where it just became an anthem bashing exercise, and that's why I fell out of love with it, because everybody just wanted to hear those big tracks from yesteryear rather than you try breaking anything new and people weren't receptive of it, and it pissed me off a bit. And that's changing now, but it certainly got to that point. But the perfect audience member would just be look, someone who's out for a good time. He's not going to stand at the fucking front of the DJ box asking you to put stuff on or trying to get your attention or anything, you know. And he's open-minded to music, and also he's there to dance. You know, the big thing that's probably, you know, an obvious thing to talk about from a DJ's point of view, but the scourge of mobile phones in clubs, you know, everybody with the mobile phone out, it kills it, man. And I see it from both sides. I'm lucky enough that I DJ to a slightly older crowd with some of the hard house stuff I've done, because the demographic of people who've historically been into hard house is a little bit older, like probably mid-30s to mid-40s. And then I DJ to the tech house lot with the Tough London, who are the younger generation. The difference in crowds is really, really, you know, really noticeable. You've got your younger crowd who literally just have the phones out every drop, just trying to take bloody photos and videos and stuff. And then you've got your older lot who do get the phones out occasionally, but they're in that mentality, that old school mentality now of just there for a good time and to have a dance. And then I'm sure you've seen the videos online of old school raves and old school clubbing where, you know, having a mobile phone wasn't even a thing and everybody's just lost in the moment and just going for it. And I think the mobile phone has killed a lot of the vibe and energy with dance music, because everybody's very, very conscious now about self-imaging and the fact that you're never far away from a photo or a video, and you don't want to look like an idiot in front of all your mates where you've got your top off and you're swinging it around your head and you know you're loving life. You don't want that online. What if mum and dad saw that? What if a boss saw that?
Yeah.
So society in general has gone a lot more reserved and a lot more all about image and how you look rather than the moment. And I think that's a real shame that's got lost, because to me clubbing was all about that hedonism and that carefreeness and the fact that you could let loose and there was no judgment about you. You know, you could be from any race, you could be, you know, you could be black, you could be white, you could be from anywhere, any sexual preference, didn't matter. Everybody's just together as one, letting loose and living for the weekend basically. And now everyone's just going to film you or video you, and
everyone's living for Instagram.
Exactly, that sense of escapism has been lost. It's to a certain degree anyway. I do think that maybe one of the benefits, I hope, from the back of this pandemic is the fact that people might go back to having that carefree attitude, the fact that they've just been, you said it earlier, they've been coiled up on that elastic band for that long that when they let loose, they just don't give a fuck anymore and everybody runs out, and that hedonistic side of clubbing returns. Or maybe it'll go the other way and everyone's just that reserved that they're just going to sit on the phone.
So I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle. I think what's going to happen is people have felt like they've lost a year and a half of their life, right?
Yeah.
So I think attendance is almost going to be mandatory for these kinds of things. People will absolutely go out and do whatever, but I think people are just going to try to document the whole thing, right?
Yeah, that's a good point, mate. Yeah.
So it's going to be, I'm having the best night of my life because it's the first night out since the pandemic, and they may not be having the best night of their life because, and arguably they won't be because they're living it through their phones.
Yeah.
But everyone's Instagram story on the Monday or the Sunday morning after they've been out on that Saturday night is going to be littered with club photos, club videos, this, that, the next thing. And from a cash perspective, the clubs are going to be absolutely quids in because everyone's going to be smashed. Everyone's going to be in the club till it closes. However, for you, from actually the artist's perspective, I think that will probably be a detriment because, as you've rightfully said, the idea is, and this relates kind of back to why I don't go to gigs anymore. Right? I used to, like from the age of about 14 to about 21, 22, like you'd find me in some gig, metal or whatever, every weekend probably, or at least 2 weekends a month with my friends and whatever. And when we, you grew up, or I grew up a lot of times in those crowds, either in those mosh pits or picking people up in those mosh pits, or going out with a white t-shirt and coming back with a red one, or driving home and I haven't got any glasses, or I'm missing a shoe, or whatever. Right? I mean, yeah, great nights. But I also noticed the transition of the demographic of just me going to the same bands, because they come around once a year or whatever it is. You go and see the same bands, and the kids are getting younger, and that it's all about, I need to get to the very front. I need to watch this shit through my phone, because if I can't, I haven't been.
Mate, that's I've literally seen that with my own eyes, and I've seen it many times where, from a small scale point of view, where I've seen a group of people sat at a table and they're drinking, and they'll smile for a selfie, and they all strike this mad pose like they're fucking have the most outrageous time ever. And as soon as the photo's taken, they all sit back down and just don't say anything on the phones, to the point of where there's been a girl who was behind the decks once, and she was crying, and she'd fallen out with a mate. They'd been out for a birthday, and they'd had, I can't remember the intricacies of it, but it doesn't really matter. The fact was that she was behind the decks crying in bits. She took a photo of herself behind the decks and put it on her Instagram with the caption like, having the best night ever. And then I know she'd had the worst night ever, but then she wanted to portray to the world that she was having the best night ever. And I just think that's people these days are too quick to want everybody to know everything that they've done. And like you quite rightly said then, mate, if I don't take a picture, it didn't happen, which is it's a sad mindset to have, really. And unfortunately, that's just a victim of the Instagram generation, really. It's an inevitability. I can't even say the word
Inevitability.
That's the one I'm looking for, Harry. Thank you.
No bother. Yeah, I agree. And look, I've just seen the time, and I realize I've taken quite a bit of yours, and I just wanted to, before I give any closing thoughts, what's next for you? When we're recording this now, what are we? January, February, March, April. So we're in April, right? We're recording in April. That's what the pandemic's done as well. I've forgotten what time means. I've forgotten what dates are. I just wake up and do the same thing. But yeah, so we're recording this in April. The restrictions are supposed to come off in a couple of, they start to come off in a couple of weeks. What's the plan for you? What's the plan for Tidy? What's the plan?
Well, the plan is we've got our rescheduled Tidy Weekender event, which is happening on the 9th, 10th and 11th of July at Prestatyn, at Pontins Prestatyn. That's obviously pending that the roadmap sticks.
Yeah.
We've then got a series of events planned for the back end of the year. We're doing Bournemouth on the 4th of September at the O2 Academy. We've got a long history of doing events down there. We've been doing them down there for years, and that's going to be the first club event that Tidy's done in almost 2 years now. The week after that, we're doing Leeds. We're doing Saturday, the September the 11th at the Mint Warehouse. And then we've got some stuff planned for the back end of the year. The big focus for us is about music, and one thing that the pandemic has really brought back home is it's about music, and that's quite a cliche saying from a Tidy point of view, because one of our big tracks was called "It's About Music," so it's a big slogan, but it really is. And we're just focusing on pushing the music a lot more now, and we've got some absolutely great music lined up for release on the labels. So we're doing that, and then just basically seeing how it goes. We're going to be touring again next year. We've got some plans for some international stuff, so yeah, it's all looking very, very positive, and I'm just glad that there's, you know, signs of coming out the back end of this now. And I understand it's not going to be, you know, without its bumps and you know, stuff challenges, shall we say. But at the same time, then, you know, we'll hit him face on, and we'll take him in our stride, and we'll come out the other side. You know, we're 25 years old, and we haven't been taken down yet. So, you know, a few more little bumps and humps along the way just add to the story, don't they, mate? So
Absolutely.
yeah. I mean, one of the main things I'm looking forward to doing is getting back to jiu-jitsu, mate. Because we aren't even talking about that, have we?
Yeah, no, I kind of got. I mean, I've said this a few times. Like the one thing I don't like doing is, you know, predominantly you're a musician, right? Let's be honest. That's what you are. You're a musician. You're a producer. You're not really a grappler. It's just grappling for fun.
Yeah.
But the one thing I find is jiu-jitsu is so. It's just as encompassing, right? If you allow it to be, it's just as encompassing in everything else, right? And I feel like there is so much more to people that do jiu-jitsu, whether they do it professionally or just, you know, twice a week or once a week or whatever it is. There's so much more to those people, as you've demonstrated. You know, we're nearly an hour and 40 minutes in, and
really?
You know, we haven't touched jiu-jitsu once, and I think it's important to show that the people that do jiu-jitsu, that's not all they just do. That's not just them, right? Like for me, even, you know, I could sit and I could have a conversation with absolutely anyone that rolls.
You could.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like I said, me and you have, you know, you've heard me speak about jiu-jitsu before, and I follow the game quite closely, and I could, you know, happily speak to anyone for as long as they fancied it. But, you know, I also understand that there are, like, for me, like, I learned a lot about you today. You know, we've known each other a year, something like that. 2 years. Well, it's got to be 2 years now.
2 years now, man.
Right. And I learned a lot about you that I didn't know, and I think that's what I like about this, rather than
good.
You know, so
yeah.
My closing thoughts are just that, and I wanted to say this, but I thought it was best to wait until the end. Is like, you mentioned it earlier, and I think you put it really well, is that people falling into the thing that they love to do and making money from it is really, really rare, right?
Yeah.
And I understand that you understand how privileged of a position that is and how fortunate and all of that stuff. I don't think it's lucky, because I think you worked really hard for it. And I think that the passion and the hard work combined to put you in a position where you're in. But I think even not being as much of an advocate for dance music, I think that it's really important that you exist, right? And your contribution to the music scene in the UK, in Leeds, in Europe, in the world, frankly, I think that it's really, really important. And I think you should be immensely proud for what you've done so far. Thanks, and I know, mate, this is just the start, right? I know there's lots and lots to come, whether it be this year, in 5 years, in 10 years, whatever. I would love to see you at 85 years old, slamming tunes out on a deck somewhere.
You will.
And this is what I mean. Like, I'm almost certain that I will. But yeah, I just think you should be immensely proud for what you've done so far and what's going to come. And that's.
Oh, thanks, mate. That really does mean a lot. And you know, I'm just glad that people are receptive of what we do, and, you know, we don't always get it right, and, you know, I'm fortunate to work with people who've been able to push me in the right direction. So yeah, it's all just about enjoying yourself, really, and that's the whole mantra of life. If you're not enjoying yourself, you need to change it up so you are. And I enjoy what I do, and I hope and know that kind of comes across, you know, and I hope it's come across from this conversation that I
absolutely
enjoy about it. So yeah,
well, look, man. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, thank you, mate. Pleasure's all mine. Cheers, mate.